Hey there, rednecks, preppies, redneck preppies. It's me, the redneck preppy. How you doing today? Great? Good. So recently I made a video reviewing the Lyman Easy Case Gauge, this here contraption. And I briefly mentioned that there were other kinds of case gauges as well. This kind, for example. Now, I came across as less than a fan of these kinds as well, and I was going to leave it at that, but then one of you had to go off and email me and ask me about using those. So I figured it might be worth a quick video to express my opinion on this style of case gauge and tell you why I don't particularly care for them either. Now, as I mentioned, these style of case gauges come in two basic styles, and they're manufactured by a variety of companies. Now, this first one, very lovely looking one, is made by Lyman, and they refer to it as an ammo checker. And all it does is to see whether your resized brass or completed ammunition fits into it without issue. Now, this one is for 7.62 by 54R. I happen to have been resizing that exact same caliber today. And as you can see, if you've never seen one of these in use, you just put it in, and that basically tells you it is within spec. Easy peasy. The second style is this gauge, also coincidentally made by Lyman, and it performs two functions. The first is it ensures your ammunition fits within specs for that round, just like this one did. But it also serves the added function of ensuring that your case is of the proper length, giving you measurements for trim length and maximum length, as you can see by the picture that's on the screen right now. So you're probably saying to yourself, redneck, that seems pretty useful, particularly that second type. What's the problem with them? I'm glad you asked. For the most part, nothing. I've used these gauges for years, and they generally do what they're supposed to. I know if I slide a case into one of these, and that if it doesn't fit, there's a pretty darn good chance it also won't chamber. Sure, there is a chance that the case that doesn't fit into a gauge could possibly still fit into an old and sloppy or poorly manufactured chamber. That's not exactly a good thing. The problem comes when the exact opposite happens. The case or ammunition fits perfectly in the case gauge, but fits like O.J. Simpson's glove in the chamber of a firearm. Ammunition that fits into a gauge, but not a chamber, can also be a pretty bad scene, leading to a stoppage at minimum, or perhaps something a little more catastrophic. But you say, how is that possible? It is impossible that a case gauge accurately ensures the dimensions of a round so that it conforms to SAMI spec, but not be chamberable in a firearm made for that round. Well, I am here through personal experience to tell you otherwise. Last year, I was hand-loading some 45 ACP for my Kimber Custom 2 handgun. It's basically an M1911A1 clone that I absolutely love, and I completed about 200 rounds during that session. Dutifully, I checked each case in the case gauge I have for that caliber, and outside of one, they all passed. Wonderful. Because, however, it was my first time reloading that round, I decided to pull the barrel from the Kimber and do the old plunk test to double make sure. And that's where the trouble started. While most of the rounds did pass the plunk test just fine, an uncomfortably high number didn't. Not by much. They didn't make that lovely plop sound, and some of them stuck out of the chamber just a little too much for my liking. Sure, they probably would have chambered and ejected fine under the force of the handgun's operation. But short of testing that out by actually firing them, I wasn't sure. All I knew is that they didn't just plop into the handgun's chamber like you like, despite being aces in the case gauge. And that led me to my great epiphany when it comes to these things. Case gauges are marvelous tools to ensure that your ammunition fits into case gauges. Now, you might think there was an issue with my handgun, but I put thousands of rounds of factory ammunition through the Kimber without any problems. Yes, no jams, M1911 haters. That thing runs like a clock. No, I never plunk tested factory rounds to find out if they did the same thing that my hand loads did, so I can't confirm that much. That said, the fact that my hand loads sort of failed the plunk test while passing the case gauge test has soured my opinions on case gauges. And that leads me to my point on how to actually properly test your ammunition during the reload process, by actually using the firearm you plan on firing the rounds in. No, don't be a knucklehead and chamber rounds into a fully functioning rifle. Remove the rifle's bolt and manually insert the rounds with your fingers into the chamber. If it fits, you're a star. If it doesn't, well, you got your answer there, right? I'm going to say this again for the Mensa candidates out there. Do not use your firearm's action, bolt, semi, or otherwise, to chamber a round to test it. If you have a defective round, firearm, or both, you may find out the hard way about what kind of response you're going to get in a neighborhood when a gunshot is heard, or what an out-of-battery explosion can do. If you absolutely must use the action, at least remove the firing pin. Now, I know some of you watching this are going to argue that a firearm that properly chambers the round it was designed for will have ammunition that's going to pass a case gauge test, and that I'm an idiot. Both of those propositions are very likely true, most certainly the second one. That doesn't change the fact that a round can pass a case gauge test, but fail a chambering test. I know, because this has happened to me. So my advice is avoid paying the $30 to $50 each for one of these gauges, and just test the rounds in the firearm you intend to use to fire them in. Saves you money and ensures there won't be any issue in chambering or firing the completed rounds. And you get better results by using a pair of calipers to measure case length anyway. So there is no real reason to actually need to use these. At any rate, I hope you found today's video to be mildly entertaining and at least vaguely informative. As always, make sure that your hand loads actually work before you rely on them. Take care, and bye-bye.